Hello dear children, this is Simi Kaur from Superior English. Today we will do an in-depth study of the poem from Flamingo, an elementary school classroom in a slum by Stephen Spender. In this session we shall cover the following aspects. 1. The line-by-line explanation of the poem which will equip you to answer flawlessly in your board exam. 2. Broad themes like poverty, social injustice, class inequalities, superficiality and corruption are elaborately discussed. 3. Questions and answers from the previous board exam are evaluated. Stephen Spender, the English poet, was a socialist who believed in a classless society with equal opportunity of education for all. This is an elementary school where basic or essential education is imparted to the children. This school is located in a slum area where the condition of the children and the school is in a pathetic state. The first stanza throws light on the deplorable condition of the children. Here we go. Far, far from the gusty waves, far, far from the gusty waves, these children's faces, like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor. Explanation. The waves of the sea are energetic or rather turbulent, unlike the faces of the children which are crestfallen. Their life is like rootless weeds. What are weeds, children? Weeds are those wild plants whose proximity or closeness hampers the growth of other plants. Hence, the poet compares the life of these children with weeds, unwanted and unwelcomed, and to top it all, rootless. Rootless, that is without any support system. When life is so miserable, it shows on the physical appearance. The unkempt hair is spread on the dull, colorless skin. The tall girl with her weighed down head. The tall girl with her weighed down head. Explanation. This is an elementary school where students are between the age of 5 and 13. This girl is probably too old for her class and is suffering from an inferiority complex. Her weighed down head indicates that she is burdened with the weight of work, worry and responsibilities. In short, life itself is a burden for her. The paper-seeming boy with rat's eyes. The paper-seeming boy with rat's eyes. Explanation. This boy, who is thin, frail, fragile like paper, has rat-like eyes. A human is supposed to have human-like eyes, but this boy has rat-like eyes. Why, children? Because he is malnourished, diseased, and is also restless like a rat, always looking for something, always seeking something. Obviously, because there is absence of so many things in his life. The stunted, unlucky heir of twisted bones reciting a father's gnawed disease, his lesson from his desk. The stunted, unlucky heir of twisted bones reciting a father's gnawed disease, his lesson from his desk. Explanation. Among the poor, unfortunate children in the school, we also have this undernourished, deformed boy who has inherited his father's dreaded disease which has rendered him physically disabled. The poor boy is struggling to read his lesson. At back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young, his eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in tree room other than this. At back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young, his eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in tree room other than this. Explanation. Finally, there is one boy in the slum school who is sweet and young, seated at the back of the dim class, unnoticed, whose eyes are filled with happy dreams. He dreams of playing like a squirrel, lively and enthusiastic, in the open blue sky, and accomplish the glory in which sky is the limit. But of course, he does not like the dark, dim, dingy classroom where his dreams can never become a reality. Now we'll begin with the second stanza, in which the poet has drawn a fair comparison between the pitiful condition of the children and the lavish paintings hung on the walls of the classroom. Here we go. On sour cream walls, donations, Shakespeare's head, cloudless at dawn, civilized dome riding all cities. Belt, flowery, Tyrolis Valley, open-handed map awarding the world its world. And yet, for these children, these windows, not this map, their world, were all their futures painted with a fog. A narrow street sealed in with a lead sky, far, far from rivers, capes, and stars of words. Explanation. The poet, being a socialist, brings out the corruption of the capitalist who build these schools, classrooms, and donate paintings for the underprivileged to glorify their names and immortalize themselves, but later do not take any effort to maintain the infrastructure, which reduces to decay and ruin due to negligence. The walls of the classrooms are worn out and discolored. The eminent English author Shakespeare is painted on the wall, but ironically, it is only symbolic or cosmetic, because in reality, children are not offered any constructive education. It is a sheer show of superficiality. There is also a painting of cloudless dawn, civilized dome, that is magnificent buildings, majestic Tyrolis Valley hung on the discolored wall. Again, very much in contrast to the agonizing life of these destitutes. The world, in the form of the map, is hung on the wall is akin to a mere symbol, an award, a decorative object, which can only be seen by them and not explored. They cannot venture out and see what this world actually feels like, because for them, the windows that seal their dark, dim, dingy classroom and overlook into their slum is their world, and not the one which the map depicts. Their future is painted with fog. Fog, haze, mist blurs your vision. These children cannot look into their future clearly because it is filled with gloom and despair. They live in a narrow street, and when they look up, they see a lead sky instead of clear blue one. Lead is a toxic chemical and is a metaphor here for the unhygienic, toxic living conditions in which these poor children live. All of this are far, far from the capes, valleys, rivers, and cloudless skies at dawn, which are only adorned and symbolically hung on the classroom walls. Then we come to the third stanza, in which the poet Stephen Spender describes the emotions of hopelessness, despair, and desperation which arouse in the minds and hearts of the slum children as a result of the circumstances they are imprisoned into. Here we go. Surely Shakespeare is wicked. Surely Shakespeare is wicked. The map, a bad example, with ships and sun and love tempting them to steal, for lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes, from fog to endless night. On their slag heap, these children wear skins peeped through by bones, and spectacles of steel, with mended glass, like bottle bits on stones. All of their time and space are foggy slum, so blot their maps. So blot their maps with slums as big as doom. Explanation. Undoubtedly, Shakespeare is wicked. Why, children? Because Shakespeare writes novels which are about kings and the lavish castles and palaces. their luxuriant lifestyles. He writes about love and desires, colossal ships, and bright days. All this incurs a feeling of immense temptation in the minds of these deprived children, and arouse in them a feeling to steal, to loot, to plunder. Hence, Shakespeare is wicked. He is wicked. The map, too, is evil because it shows the world which is completely different from these poor children's world. Their world are the tightly packed, the cramped holes, inhuman conditions, the dark nights that never see the bright light of the day. Filth, dirt, and muck invariably is the inhuman physical conditions in which these poor children live. But more than that are the abuses and insults they have to bear, which rips them apart mentally and psychologically. Slag heap is not only the dirt and muck, but also abuse and insult. Malnourished, sick and deformed, and also poverty stricken. They wear spectacles whose glass is miserably damaged. Since the world is the dirty, gloomy, hazy slum, then why show the world map? Why expose them to the beauty of Tyrolis? Why read Shakespeare to them? Blot their maps black. Oh, blot their maps black and dreary, just like the slum, which spells only and only disaster for them. In the fourth or the last stanza, the poet appeals to the men in power to uplift the condition of the children as they are in a position to do so. Here we go. Unless governor, inspector, visitor, this map becomes their window, and these windows that shut upon their lives like catacombs, break, oh break, open till they break the town, and show the children to green fields and make the world run azure on gold sands, and let their tongues run naked into the books, the white and green leaves open, history theirs, whose language is the sun. Explanation. The poet fervently appeals to the men in power, like the governor or the inspector, to take aggressive measures to improve the condition of these anguished children, so that the map hung on their classroom walls becomes their world too, bright and rosy. The foggy windows that shut their lives like catacombs. What are catacombs, children? They are underground cemeteries, graveyards, or burial grounds, as you can see in this picture. So the foggy windows that shut their lives like catacombs, sounding the death knell to their dreams, ought to be broken, ought to be shattered, and the children ought to be taken into the green fields in fresh air and blue sky. Green fields here not only signify clear, clean green land, but also knowledge and happiness. The poet desires that a little effort and initiative on the part of this official machinery will go a long way in giving these deprived children a bright future in which they can run azure on golden sand. What is azure, children? Azure is bright blue color or brilliant blue color. The cloudless sky is azure. The color of the sea is azure. The poet means that if adequate help and support is provided to the children, they can achieve heights. To run azure on golden sands means to make the impossible possible. Give them quality of life, good living conditions, efficient teachers, books and knowledge. Empower them and then see how they write their destiny in a language as brilliant and beaming, as rich and vibrant as the sun. Now that brings us to the end of the poem. We shall discuss some questions from the examination point of view. The first question runs like this. This is from your last stanza of the poem. Unless governor, inspector, visitor, this map becomes the window, and these windows that shut upon their lives like catacomb. Why does the poet invoke governor, inspector, and visitor? 1 mark. Answer. The poet invokes the governor, inspector, and visitor because they have the power and authority to uplift the condition of the school and the slum children. Second question. What does this map refer to? Answer. This map refers to the world map which is hung on the wall of the classroom. How can it become their window? How can it become their window? With the help from these men in power, the quality of life and education of these children can be enhanced, and this map can become their window to a greener and cleaner world. What have these windows done to their lives? What have these windows done to their lives? These windows, like burial grounds, have sealed their fate and imprisoned them into a life of misery and unhappiness. What do you understand by catacombs? Again, this is 1 mark. All of the questions contain 1 mark. So what do you understand by catacombs? Catacombs are cemeteries, graveyards, or burial grounds. The foggy windows of the classroom which overlook the slum are referred to as catacombs. Next question runs like this. What picture of the slum children does the poet draw? What picture of the slum children does the poet draw? This is a 4-marker question. The answer runs like this. The condition of these slum children is really pathetic and agonizing. There is a tall girl, big for the class. Her head is bent because of the worries and burden. Then there is a malnourished, hungry and scared boy who is restlessly looking everywhere. Also present in the class is a deformed boy who has inherited his father's disease. Then we also have a sweet and young boy whose eyes are filled with rosy and lively dreams. Then we have the next question, which runs like this. The very first stanza. Far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces, like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor, the tall girl with a weighed down head. Who are these children? 1 mark. Answer. These children are the woe-begone children of the slum school. Second question. What does the poet mean by gusty waves? Again 1 mark. The poet means, the answer, the poet means the energetic, spirited, lively waves, completely in contrast to the young children's lives. Third question. What has possibly weighed down the tall girl's head? Stress, worry, burden, responsibilities have weighed down the tall girl's head. The fourth and the last question. Identify the figure of speech used in these lines. Identify the figure of speech used in these lines. The phrase far, far from gusty waves is metaphorical. It refers to enthusiasm, spirit, liveliness, and energy, which are common characteristics of children. Yet, these children are far, far from these characteristics, thus far, far from these gusty waves. The second figure of speech is a simile, and you must have identified like rootless weeds. Like rootless weeds is a simile. Wherever there is a comparison with like and as, the comparison is a simile. So children, this brings us to the end of the session of Superior English. Hope this session is gainful and advantageous to you. We'll upload more videos in the time to come. Certainly, we'll look forward for your likes and do subscribe. Thank you.